little intimidating. I didn't do high school theater, so this makes me very nervous. Okay, so standing in the light. In the first session, we looked at fresh models for lending undertaken by a variety of organizations, and those folks are with us for this second session as well. In that session, we really outlined the model. How do they make the loans? What do the participants do besides get a loan from them? How do we basically support getting capital into the hands of what are called the community, the underserved entrepreneurship communities, of which rural is a major segment. They had some amazing ideas, and they also shared some amazing structures with us. The purpose of this session is a follow-on to that, where we actually show the model in action. And we talk to rural entrepreneurs who have benefited from that model. And then we're also going to talk amongst ourselves about stories that we know and what are the challenges that rural entrepreneurs face. Some of them are not just about access to capital. Some of them are about other kinds of things. And so to that end, I just want to, is anybody a rural entrepreneur in the room? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. We'll probably be calling on you guys as well to share your wisdom about what you found the opportunity to be in rural communities and where you found the challenges to be in rural communities, because yours may be different or much like those others. And I'm looking, there she is. All right, I am looking for, we are going to start this conversation. Now, essentially, this is how this works in our imagination. It may or may not work exactly as planned in our real lives. So what we are going to do is let people eavesdrop on a conversation between the lender and the rural entrepreneur that they served. And so we're going to have 3 sets of conversations, as would be the way. The second conversation is not happening. We're going to have a fake conversation where we're going to role play the conversation, because we just got a text from that entrepreneur that his mother has been taken to the emergency room and he has had to go to the hospital. So we're just gonna honor that and send our good wishes that his mother recovers successfully, and know that this is the life of an entrepreneur, right? You don't have staff to delegate to. It's if you can't do it, then nobody can do it, and that is a big problem. So we are going to kick this conversation off with Tosh Comer, and I'm going to let her introduce herself for those of you that weren't in the first session, and her conversation partner, Demetria Rosser, who I'm going to put on camera and we're going to double check, but she was there and it was working the last time we checked. All right, so here we go. Oh, and we're going to admit Damien. Hold on just a second. We'll admit Damien first. Thank you, Tosh. Demetria, can you unmute and put on your, there you go, perfect. And Damien, welcome to the party. If you want to leave yourself on mute and leave your video off for now, we're gonna talk first to, you're gonna basically talk first to my stomach. You're gonna talk to, we're gonna talk first with Tosh and Demetria, and then we are gonna have you and Savosky on in just a little bit. So that Demetria can see you. Okay, yes, we are not going to be in the theater production business anytime soon.
So just to level set for those who were in the first session, I am Tosh Comer, the Coaching and Connections Manager with Thread Capital. This is my first Radically Rural Summit, so I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining me. We get to talk to the beautiful Demetria Rosser, who wears many hats, no pun intended, but also is a rural-based entrepreneur out of Halifax County in North Carolina. So I did not write my questions down. They are in my phone, so I'm going to be that person today as well. Give me 1 second here. And before I do that, I'm gonna give you just a little backstory about Demetria real quick. Not to take away from her story, because I'm definitely going to let her give her moment, but she actually has been in the trucking industry pretty much all her life. Her dad was a trucker, and she followed in his footsteps. And so, as many of you know, legacy businesses are not necessarily the thing nowadays, but it is something that you absolutely can create a path to success. So, we'll get started. Thank you, Demetria, for joining us today. I'm so excited that you decided to participate. Full disclosure, very much probably like Laurel, my other entrepreneur, he had a fire going on in his business and he had to back out. So one of his work crews got short staffed, and so he had to show up. But Miss Demetria was more than gracious to step in, and so I'm so excited for her to be with us today. So here are the questions. Well, let me go ahead and let you talk. Do you want to share a little bit of your story, let them know who you are and how you kind of got to where you are today?
Um, well, everyone knows my name. I'm Demetria. I'm from Halifax County. So I'm a daddy's girl. So growing up, when my dad would go out and work on the trucks, I'll be up under the truck handing him tools and grease and everything. And it was something I think I grew to love because I love my dad. Just spending that time, so I got a chance to see how everything went, and riding in the truck with him, and when he went to the bank, because he made sure that I knew financial literacy as well. So going into the bank and actually seeing the checks, mama didn't even know what the checks were, but I did. So I kind of rubbed it in her face. But anyway, seeing what he made when, he was working, it was great. So I wanted to have more time with my family, because a lot of them depend on me for a lot. So I just left my job and I was like, I'm going to do it. And stepped out on faith, and here I am.
Wow, that was a big step of faith, and we're so glad you did it. So here's the first question: what did we do that made it easy for you to connect with us? Three.
So I've been with you guys since 2015. So you guys were originally the North Carolina Rural Center. And one good thing that I like, that when you guys changed, you kept the connections. The people that I was originally used to working with, that stayed the same. And when I originally started, because I ran many businesses, I already had a guy that was a counselor for you guys. So, he began to tell me how you guys, how the program went. And I was like, what about my credit? And he was like, don't worry about your credit. As long as you have a sound business plan and it makes sense, and you have your things in order, we can make things work.
Nice. So just to level set, she's talking about the Rural Center's microloan program. Thread Capital was birthed out of that, and now we are CDFI. So we do larger lending. But thank you for that answer. That's perfect. Next question. Yeah. What did you find beneficial from participating in our program?
So just recently, I graduated from the Ready program that you guys offered, the Rural Economic Development. And in that program, I learned a lot, from running my business more efficiently, connecting with like different people from the mountains to the beaches. It was just a great crowd of people, knowledge, and I was able to walk away with having those connections. So that was one of the great things that I enjoyed about that program.
Oh, I love that. And then I'm not trying to lead you into the question, but I know you mentioned when we talked about before, some of the resources that your lender was able to help you with when you needed more capacity and more help. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So Jaleesa was the one that stepped up and helped me. She was ready. Like if I called last minute, and I used to feel so bad. I'm like, I hope I'm not calling her a lot. But just having her there. If she couldn't answer by phone, she answered by text message, or she would email me, and she would send me everything that I needed, like a step-by-step guide, what they needed. So I mean, just just having her there to connect and pass that information to me was great.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad. And then, oops, hold on. We love technology, but sometimes. How have you seen your business grow as a result of working with Thread Capital?
Um, One thing that it gave me was more time and flexibility. And those are some of the things that, you can't actually put a money amount on. So having, the connection with you guys to give me more flexibility, even with, I can't think of the gentleman's name, he was just telling me, you need to hire someone. And me just going through my everyday notions, thinking that I can do everything, that right there, just having to hire someone to bring in more staff to kind of help me with the things, regulations, things that you have to do, deadlines. So yeah, just having that person, having someone there to learn that from doing the program that I attended as well.
Nice. That's amazing. And then last question. Oh, wait, I wanted to say this because they don't know. So you started with one truck, and how many trucks do you have today?
5.
5. So we started in 2015. In 2023, you are now at 5 trucks. And I don't know if you guys know about CDL trucking. That is a lot. It's very lucrative, okay? And so she's been able to, I'm not going to reveal the amount, but our loans do range from 500 and they go all the way to 100K. And she was one of our first recipients to get our max loan amount when we first started our program. So this is a true blue, one of Thread Capital's true blue original clients that you're getting to talk to today. And then last question, what are your next challenges? Recognizing that entrepreneurship is nothing but an ongoing set of challenges to be overcome. What is now your path to success?
One path is driver training. Taking the time to, train the drivers. And that kind of goes with what you just said. I originally had 7 trucks, but drivers not doing, like what they supposed to do, me not having the time to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. I've lost two trucks behind drivers not doing what they supposed to do, and probably part of what, I should have been doing as well. The other thing, another challenge is I want to get my own CDLs. So having the time, the money to pay for it. So that's another challenge, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it, and just cultivating business relationships with other brokers, other network, other people in the community, and just seeing what they need from me in my community.
Nice. So I will. I'm only going to tell a little bit of our conversation because we are coming to a close here. But Demetria is now interested in becoming a entrepreneur support organization. So very specifically with this trucking company, she also wants to make sure that she's able to give the resources that they need. So I'm so excited, and I was already able to give her a connection of how she can diversify her as well. So when I talk about coaching, capital coaching and connections, we really don't stop just at the loan. We go beyond that. Resources can really provide things that capital cannot. That connection can open doors that have been historically closed or just opportunities.
Agree 100%.
I have a witness. So I just wanted to encourage you all in that, in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Make sure that you're making those connections. Your network can also be their network. I mean, Demetria is a great person, and we've been working with her for quite some time, so we don't mind. But thank you again for joining us today.
Tell her to stay as long as she can because we'd like to ask some questions.
Yeah, please stay as long as you can. I know
Okay,
she does have to get her babies.
I'm going to stay as long as I can, but I have bossy little kids that if I show up late from school picking them up, I don't want that action. But I'm going to stay as long as possible.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move it to the next person. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to be back to you with questions. I love Demetria's story. I'm sure that the person that Tosh had originally lined up would have been awesome, because I think all of her entrepreneurs are probably awesome, but I confess I was super excited when I saw that it was a woman trucker. Oh my gosh, like that is just the best story ever. And talk about breaking barriers, right? And doing things that people don't expect and all of that. So I'm kind of secretly excited that the universe conspired, Demetria, to bring you into our world. So thank you so much. All right, now for the role-playing part. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Laurel Adams, and Laurel is going to sit, yeah, you can sit there. We're going to sit together and we're going to have a conversation. I am going to be Laurel Adams, and Laurel Adams is going to be
my entrepreneur, Tika Acharya.
So
my entrepreneur as a, sorry, 10 to 12 inches away from the mouth. My entrepreneur is busy, as they all are. Thank you for joining us. Your story was amazing. We have lots of great trucking businesses. I applaud you for championing them. That's wonderful. So we're going to talk about a new American path to funding.
Right, so I'm going to be Laurel Adams, and I'm going to say that our organization, the Rural Economic Development Corporation of Raymond, New Hampshire, has done a lot of innovative programs, but one of the ones that is most exciting and the one that we had her speaking about in our first session is the program for new Americans who are both immigrants and refugees to several communities in New Hampshire. Many of you may know firsthand, but you also heard a little bit in the keynote about some of the special obstacles and barriers that refugees and immigrants face in establishing their businesses. And so coming up with a loan product that was specific to them, but then also all of the supporting services that were necessary has been a part of the Regional Economic Development Corporation's work for several years now, and they have a lot of success stories to share. And we have been proud to be affiliated with them and know about their story. And so that was what Laurel talked about in the first session. And now Laurel is going to talk with her entrepreneur who was one of the beneficiaries of these new American loans. So let's just start with a little bit about your personal story. How did you come to the United States? How did you get to the Regional Economic Development Corporation?
So I'm going to try to embrace the speaking as my entrepreneur hat, even though I'm not sure I can tell the story as gracefully as he did. But, it was very impactful for me. We worked in Concord in 2016, 2017, 2018, went statewide with, with a loan fund for new Americans, refugees and immigrants. And Tika Acharya, who I'm pretending to be speaking for, was one of our first borrowers. He worked through financial services in Bhutan, spent 9 years in a tent camp with his kids and in-laws, had a very challenging journey here, and after working really hard and saving a ton of money, finally was able to fund a startup. And we were able to do that first insurance business. Since then, he has bought 4 other insurance brokerage businesses and just sailed far beyond us, which is kind of my goal with everyone is, hopefully you just stick with us for a couple of years and you go on. And, he's done that and has, seen his kids into business on their own and really, grown through that path to entrepreneurship. So to me, I think, handing people the tool to have this happen without, we've talked a lot about credit and challenges and, the 5 or 6 C's and how that works. I think being able to make decisions based on helping someone grow is really critical, and we're very good at that here.
So I'd love to know, it's kind of an amazing story. I think you will all agree that from tent camp to 4 insurance brokerages in a country that is not your home country is a pretty remarkable journey. One of the things that you're naming, though, is that you came to the United States, or Tika came to the United States with a knowledge of a business. He had knowledge, and I think this is one of the things that we learn about immigrants and and refugees all the time is they don't come without skills and knowledge. Oftentimes that skills and knowledge are located in particular industry segments, maybe replicated in the United States, maybe not. So can you talk a little bit about the difference in doing financial services in Bhutan with doing insurance in the United States and what some of the journey there was about?
Sure, and I would just say we really struggle to transfer skills between industries. I have people come to us all the time who have amazing skills and talents, but they're not necessarily licensed or accredited, or their education doesn't transfer. And so we try, and our state does a good job, and Molly and others with CDFA and BEA and all these people work really hard to try to make that happen. But in the end, it's tough sometimes to make those equal, to be able to be licensed to do what you're great at. So we're trying to bridge a little bit of that.
And so I know one of the things that you do with all of your programs is that you provide a business and technical assistance. So can you speak a little to the technical assistance that Tika received in his journey?
I can. So we do things a little bit differently. Our technical assistance is really centered around lending. So you have to either be a loan client or on your path to being a loan client. And we really try to do like soup to nuts. So it's everything from marketing, business planning, projections, QuickBooks instruction, incorporation, all through loan closing, all of that. So we try to do it all with the idea that we grow you up over 2 or maybe 3 years. In the case of new Americans, it's often a little bit longer, and COVID kind of slowed us down. But 2 to 3 years, and we want you to be able to launch and be on your own. So we try to do as much as we can, but with the idea that you're keeping loan clients internal and helping them. There are others who are great at helping clients who are not looking for loans. SBDC, SCORE, Business Enterprise Center, all of that.
So if I'm an entrepreneur, I heard 2 to 3 years. So are most of your entrepreneurs working at something else? Do they have a day job while they're busy trying to start up their business?
2 to 3. They have a lot of day jobs. Yeah, and those first couple of years, they're tough. You're hoping to break even. It's that's a tough thing to do, and we try to support them through that by giving them as much as we can so they can work extra hours, etc., with something else to make ends meet.
And so how did Tika find you? Or how did you find Tika? How did you guys connect?
So we touched on this earlier. Marketing is tough. Most of our referrals are from banks. Tika came from a bank, went to a bank, got turned down, and that banker knew us and was a great referral and said, go here. And he banks with them today. They grew him up, and 2 years later, he has a line of credit and does all his business banking with them. And people never forget that referral. You gave me a resource that's going to fund me for short term, and then I'm going to go back to them. So
How many of the loans that you get referred, are you able to make, I mean, I'm not asking for like a data point, 62.7%, but I'm just sort of curious anecdotally if you have a good sense of that. Are you able to fund most of those that are being turned away from the bank, or will you say half of them or a quarter of them?
So I would say we're right at about 70% right now.
So that's for those of you that are entrepreneurs out there and are like, I just got turned down by the bank and they told me to go to this other place and I'm kind of demoralized. I think hearing that 70% of them do get funded is a pretty exciting piece of news, right?
It is. I would say though, we definitely get a lot of federal aid for that funding. We direct government money at those businesses, and without that, we wouldn't be able to do it. Without the support of technical assistance through CDFA and SBA, we would not be able to do that work.
Okay, so that's an important thing for all of you that are running programs to understand, is that the funding stream, both for the loan funds themselves and then for the support assistance, is being subsidized from some other source. Although you do have earned income from the interest on the loans, is that correct?
We're a very self-sufficient CDFI. We just had this conversation at lunch. Most of our revenue is from the interest off the loans that we make. But, that being said, we do take a ton of risk that, traditional lenders don't take.
Yeah, and for those of you that weren't in the first session, that was a big part of this, is how do the organizations take the risk that banks are not willing to take the risk for. And it's a part about being mission driven, and it's also a part about having a different attitude about how you evaluate risk and deciding that maybe for these particular communities, evaluating risk by a credit score is not the most accurate way to evaluate the likelihood of their success and ability to repay. So thank you very much. Tika lookalike. I can only, I can only mimic my good. I can only mimic my good friend Laurel for so long, because I am not her, and so I only know so much about what she does, and so I think we're gonna have to call it there. I'm going to we're gonna try the magic of technology again and get Damien into the engagement, and it's possible. There is a very exciting video that Change Labs and Damien have done together that we may be able to play. We didn't test that part, so we will see. But first, we're just gonna have the conversation and get Damien on the screen. So here you go. Oh, sorry.
Did you want me to just hide?
I'm just gonna ask him to unmute. Hi, Damien.
Hello.
Can you also share video with us? Can we see your lovely face?
Oh, let me see. I thought I had, oh dear.
Maybe I can just ask you, I will ask you to start video and see what happens.
Okay.
There we go, perfect.
All right.
Okay.
If you'll just do introduce yourself again and then
Okay.
introduce Damien and go.
Well, hello. How many of you were in the first session? Okay, so some of you weren't here for the first session. So my name is Roboski Little. I am from Aneth, Utah, from the Navajo Nation, and I am a loan officer in the kinship lending program under Change Labs, with Change Labs. And so that's a little about me. And so let's hear. So hi, Damien. Good to see you again. We were texting just this morning. So let's hear. So let's do a little brief introduction of your business and the types of products and services that you offer, and who your customers are.
Oh, okay. I make teepees, so most of my customers they come from the Native American church community. And also, now and then I get folks from the city, like Phoenix. I made a teepee that's a little smaller than the ones that are huge. It had a 16-foot diameter. And the folks that wanted that teepee wanted to put their teepee inside their yard. They wanted to make it guest house, but because of Phoenix building codes, they couldn't build a guest house in the yard. So whenever they have guests, they take out the teepee and they stay in there. And I also make moccasins, so that's kind of a big business too. So they're custom-made moccasins, so a lot of the people who buy the moccasins want the quality moccasins, not the ones from the stores, so they want custom moccasins. So they'll pay a little bit extra than as if they would have went to the store.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And which community are you from?
I live in Rock Point, Arizona. It's kind of northeast part of Arizona.
Okay, great. And it's on the Navajo Nation. For
Navajo.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so how did you hear about Change Labs, and how did you connect with us?
It was during the lockdown in 2020, and I was just kind of doing stuff. And a friend of mine, or I call him my grandpa, his name's Gabriel Yaiba. he wanted to know if he could put me on his reference. And he talked about the loan, and then I just applied afterwards, and he said, you should try it. So I did, and I got the loan.
Okay, thank you for that. And for the, what did you find beneficial or most beneficial about participating in the kinship program?
Well, at the time when they gave me the loan, the flea markets closed. Everything closed. So Winter Rock closed, Shiprock, everywhere, even like the border towns, Farmington closed, everything was closed. Only the essential businesses were open, like hardware stores. So it was hard for us to take our products to places we normally take our products. So I hang out at flea markets. For some reason, I like them. And I get to mingle with people, get to know more people. That's where the network is. And for me, that's where I find the money. So I don't sell to like trading posts or different places. And they try to mark me down, or they try to buy my moccasins for a lower price than I want my moccasins for, and they want it in bulk. And I don't have time to do that. I'd rather do the custom made stuff and charge more. So anyway, so the money helped to kind of keep me afloat on bills and other things.
All right, yes, thank you for that. And so you use the money just for regular operational needs, as well as to pay for bills. And so let's see here. So how have you seen your business grow from the loan or for the program?
Well, with the they had a Christmas kind of what do you call it? It's not really a party. We ate and we kind of talked and got online. We all stood up. So I was really impressed with what the other people were doing. So I learned that this one lady went through beauty school, and then later on she developed some kind of thing with her hands so she couldn't operate the scissors or handle the stuff she needed. So then she made that transition to trucking. So she was working on that. So I was really impressed with some of what they were doing. And I just said, oh, I make teepees and I make moccasins. And I do a few other things, kind of navigating myself through trying to build gardens. So that's my other project. And then I'm trying to get into building tiny homes, because when COVID hit, we needed our own spaces for those people that did get COVID. So we needed to separate them from the main house. So, but then tiny homes are kind of big too. So around here where I live now, we had a trailer that just kind of just demolished itself from weathering, from wind and everything. So we just had a frame. So now I took that frame and I'm trying to build something on it. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Lots of new projects there. So we're getting to a close for the questions here, and then the next part. But what are the next challenges that you have as far as for your business and kind of like the next steps on your path to success?
Well, I was just thinking about that. I know like some people that sell jewelry, they have like a business license and they'll go to places and get jewelry at wholesale. So when I buy my canvases, the canvas that I use to make my moccasins, they're kind of way over there. Let me see. So I buy from two places. Say there's my canvas. Just kind of, and there's my sewing machine. Anyway, I buy my canvas at kind of retail, what everybody buys. I don't buy them at wholesale. I'm not sure if that will make a difference if I had a business license. So those kind of things I think would help, and I think I would get like right now, I tried applying for a credit card and I didn't get credit. I got denied, even though I really don't have a lot of things I pay for. I have a tractor, that's it. And that's all I pay for. I mean, like a big expense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to participate and kind of give us our listeners a perspective of your business. And Allison is asking me to ask you if you can stay on for a little bit, because then we're going to open up the floor for questions for if anyone has any questions for you. And thank you again.
Okay, so I'm going to invite Laurel. Can you come up and just bring a chair up there, and Tosh, you can just come. And you and Tosh can share the microphone, and I'm gonna smush. Here, we're gonna do this. We're gonna smush down. I'm gonna bring a chair in, so all four of us can be here, and hopefully everybody can see us in the spotlight. Not everybody's gonna see my stomach on the screen right now. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the themes that we heard from all these various entrepreneurs. But the first question I have, and I'm sorry, I'm going to take moderator's prerogative and ask a question. Damien, are you in one of your own teepees? Are you coming to us live from a teepee?
No, I'm in a hogan.
So could you explain for me what a hodan is? Because it was a beautiful space, and it looked like it maybe had canvas walls or something similar to that.
Well, I'm also a medicine man.
Okay.
So way up here, you see some kind of plant. I'm not sure if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it right up in the corner. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
There's one in each direction. So it's, and then you can see the studs and the nails. I do this 5-night ceremony where we use the heat to kind of detox people.
Wow.
But anyway, the heat makes the walls black. And then also you'll start seeing the studs and the nails. And we try to paint it and get rid of the all this stuff. You see the ribs.
Okay, that's fascinating.
So,
How many of you were fascinated? I was totally engaged by this structure. So thank you for educating us about that. Did you construct that structure? Did you build it?
Yeah, my brothers and I did.
Yeah. Okay, that's
And
amazing.
Can I add one thing?
Sure, of course.
I'm a teacher. Actually, I'm a teacher. I'm certified within the state of Arizona to teach mathematics and also Navajo language. So I passed my the language proficiency test. So I'm certified to be a teacher, and I have my master's in bilingual bicultural education. And I have a lot of, I guess, expertise, knowledge in teaching language. And also I can teach algebra in Navajo. So part of actually what I want to do is start a consulting business and training other teachers how to teach algebra in Navajo, because it's very difficult for people to navigate.
Wow.
That.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is what I love about the work that we all do, which is I am always awestruck and humbled by the entrepreneurial spirit and also just the vast capacity of the people that we work with. We only get to scratch the surface. I'm loving that both you and Demetria are, I would call, engaged in the pay it forward concept. And I even heard that from Tika as well about helping put his children into business and starting those businesses. And so I'm curious, so Damien, you've just shared your bigger ambition, your consulting business, and then Demetria, do you want to just, Tosh, I'm looking at Tosh. Tosh shared a little bit, but do you want to share a little bit about your bigger vision, about how you want to make more trucking businesses possible, I think is what Tosh was sharing with us.
So to piggyback on what Damien said, I have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit as well. I have a master's in human resources. I also used to sell clothes out of my car. I used to be a bail bondsman. What else?
You guys hear that?
I
Bail
did a lot of
bondsman?
things.
Bail bondsman, yeah.
So the entrepreneurship, if someone comes to me and they're like, well, I want to start a business, I'm like, do it. And they'll look at me like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, do it. And they're like, you're going to help me? I'm like, if you ask. So, yeah. So the entrepreneurial spirit, is one thing that I've learned is networking, grassroots connections, always being, available and always learning. I'm always learning. I'm always with the older people in my community, and yeah, to me, I love it. I wouldn't give it up for the world.
So I'm curious for both of you. This is something that we hear a lot, sort of multiple enterprises. You're making it work for your families and for yourselves by having lots of irons in the fire. So, Demetria, sort of how much of your family's income comes from your trucking business, and just a percentage? And then the same thing for you, Damien. How much of your income comes from the TP and moccasin making and all that maker stuff, and then how much comes from other enterprises that you have going on?
Do you want a percentage?
Yeah, just a percentage. What would you say? Like, is about half of your income from moccasins and teepees, or is it more than half, or?
Well, it depends. It kind of depends. Right now, it's probably a little bit more than half.
Okay, and we
And
got,
other times, I'll have large amounts of orders for moccasins. And then this past summer, I had a dry spell with, and I did a lot of workshops, moccasin making workshops. I think we had 4 of them, 4 or 5. So that's where my income was coming from this past summer.
great pivot. That's yeah, take
And
that
then-
same skill, yeah.
And then if you listen to me talk and if you listen to Demetria talk, I haven't gone through any kind of business program or coaching thing, because I'm not using words like entrepreneurial spirit, because I'm even having a hard time pronouncing it. Like, oh, that thing, and then the other thing that her hands went like this, and I'm just like, I just kind of feel embarrassed right now.
Please do not. So, okay, so I want to honor that you offered that, because we get caught at this all the time. You were saying teaching math in Navajo, it presents a big barrier for many. I think we are our own worst enemies, because we start using this language that's fancy talk for nothing really more than, I think we make ourselves feel important, to be honest with you. Sorry, Damien, that was at your expense. About using big words, because not only can I not say entrepreneurial fast 3 times, spelling it, what a nightmare, right? Spelling it. How many times do I have to spell check my emails? So business ownership and making and those kinds of things do get in the way of people trying out their ambitions, right? They make people scared that, no, I can't be that, because it's a big fancy word that I don't really even understand. Is that true? Would you say that that is true for people that you know that are in fact in business for themselves?
So for me, I told my brother, I was like, I have a last minute conference call that I was asked to do. And he was like, well, just don't say, because you love saying, And I'm like, oh, I was like, for real? I was like, okay. So he was like, and use big words and kind of, don't talk to those people the way you talk to me, your husband and the kids. And I'm like, oh, maybe, because I haven't been in the professional world in a long time, so I don't keep up with making sure that I say the right things. Now I just make sure that I use certain words to make sure that things are getting through clearly. And that's one thing that I learned from having drivers, you know what I mean? Just making sure that you say the correct things. So yeah, I just think that words really don't mean a whole lot in business. I'm not going to say that it doesn't mean a lot, but what I've learned is the connections. And what I've learned is the more that I be myself and be honest, the more connections that I cultivate.
Thank you for that honesty and also for that reality check, because I think that we can all be remembering of that. So thank you, Damien, and thank you, Demetria. Now, I'm not through with you yet, so don't leave. Our tech guy had to come and tell me that I didn't have to be rotated around 85 directions just to see you. This is not my best field right now. Okay, so I would love to hear from the audience. I've hogged the questioning because out of pure personal curiosity. I would love to hear from the audience what questions you have for Demetria and Damon or their colleagues in the lending community. Yes, sir. And I'm just gonna, Kent is gonna give me a mic here. And poor Demetria and Damien, you can't see these people, so they will at least speak and you'll be able to hear their voice, and they will say their name so that it's a little bit more humane, right?
Hello, I'm David Sales. Demetria, I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of trucking you're doing? Are these big trucks, small trucks, long haul, local? Who are your customers? And how did you find them while you were growing this business and it sounds like rebuilding the transmissions at the same time?
Okay, hold on, one quick, did I do something?
Nope, you're good. Maybe they can't, she might be able to hear through that microphone, do you think?
Oh, maybe not.
Did you hear the question? I can repeat it for you.
David, David Sales asked this question, Demetria. He wanted to know more about your trucking business, specifically like long haul, local. He came through a whole list of trucks.
Customers?
Oh, and then who were your customers? Who is hiring your trucks?
Okay, so I transport cars. I transport mainly North Carolina and Virginia. That's my areas that I mainly go to now. And I'm mainly picking up from the rail yard out of Walkertown, which is in Winston-Salem, close to Winston-Salem. And so yeah, I'm doing tractor trailers, car hauler. I want to make sure I answer all your questions. What was the other question?
No, you got it. So your customers, you pick, so who hires you? The car dealerships or the car manufacturers? You're transporting cars from the rail yard to a dealership, or?
So I do it all. So I transport for car dealerships. I transport for brokers. I do personal transport. Say somebody call me, a family member, and say, hey, I got a car in California. I need to have it transferred to Texas. I set up, I'm the middleman person that does all that.
Damien, I'm curious about the same question to you. You said that you find most of your customers at the flea markets or at fairs or that kind of, do you have an online presence? If I wanted to commission you to make moccasins, would I be able to do that online, or are you strictly an in-person kind of operation?
It's mostly in person, and I'm pretty good at moccasin making. So people bought would they
So word
they
of
find,
mouth, they find you.
I'm sought after. I don't
Excellent.
need to,
Do you have a pair of moccasins? You showed us some of the other things. Do you have a pair of moccasins you could show us?
Yep.
Demetria, I'm going to assume that you don't have a truck that you could show us right out your back window or anything.
Let me see.
Actually, I have all my trucks are on the road. So
Okay.
if they're here, I'm not making money.
Well done. Well done. Other questions?
So,
Yeah.
here's a pair of moccasins.
Oh, wow.
See the tip?
Yes.
See the tip kind of pointy?
Yeah.
And here's the stitching. It's really.
And why the pointy tip? Is that a design signature, or is that there's something functional about having that pointy tip?
Well, Navajos, we were rounded up. I always tell this history.
Please.
We were forced to walk to New Mexico, a place called Bosque Redondo, and we weren't the only ones there at a I guess a concentration camp. So we were there with Apaches. So when we were there, we adopted each other's style. So this pair is what my grandpa and I call kind of a Huelte influenced moccasin. So it has kind of like an Apachean kind of feel to it for Southwest moccasins. A lot of moccasins, they don't have this tip, this bushwhacker tip to protect your toes. So these moccasins are like that.
Fascinating. I love learning. Thank you. Other questions from the audience? Yes, thank you.
So you probably want to speak it and then you're going to need to read
Yeah, then we'll recount it, yeah.
So you talked about kind of the entrepreneur, I'm going to say it wrong, so I'm just going to stop that. Anyway, talked about, the kind of language and how it's kind of confusing. And things that intimidate me and what is very confusing is taking out a loan, is going through any type of financial process. So I was wondering if you could each speak to, how you navigated that and how it was kind of understandable and made less intimidating. Am I making sense?
Could you guys hear that, or do you need me to repeat that? I'm going to repeat that question for Demetria and Damien.
Yeah.
So a member of our audience said, just like you find the language of entrepreneurship and all of these fancy words intimidating, she finds the loan process intimidating. And she's wondering how you were guided through the loan process and what made it easier and less intimidating for you to actually complete all the forms and do everything that was required. Have I gotten the gist of your question correct? Okay, good, yeah. So Demetria or Damien, yeah.
So for me, because I've already have like some type of background in business, a lot of the requirement was a business plan. So putting together, can you guys hear me?
We can, yes, we can.
Okay, so putting together the business plan, the financial plan, and all that. And at that particular time, I was still working, so I hired somebody to kind of do my business plan for me. And I just went back. So when they sent it, I would proofread it. Hey, I need you to add this. Hey, no, don't put that. So that part of it was very easy. And then, they simply required certain things, which the things that they asked for, if I was loaning someone money, I would want those particular things as well. So it wasn't like I had to provide some things that were just like, are they really asking all this? It makes sense. And like I said, Jaleesa was there. If I had any questions, I shoot her email. She was like, oh, they're just saying that they need blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, I got that. So for me, it was pretty easy once, but then, they lay everything out. This is what we need. And you have all the time in the world, it's based off of when you can get it, like get those things to them. So for me, it was easy.
And so I'm curious, how did you find someone to write your business plan? How did you figure out who you were going to hire to do that?
So I've been living in this county forever, and I used to work at the cell phone company, and I used to be a bail bondsman. So I was, a lot of people know me here, so it was just easy. I might post some on Facebook or call a cousin or someone and say, hey, who can I get to do blah, 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 blah. And every time, that's why I always recommend connections.
Okay, Demetria, I'm kind of laughing to myself because I wouldn't have thought bail bondsman would have brought me in contact with the people that I wanted to write my business plan. But I could be wrong about that. Maybe they're the most persuasive of all.
Well, I was just trying to say, that's how my name got out there. And I also sell Rottweilers. I forgot to throw that in.
Okay, so they know that if they didn't do a good job for you, there were consequences to be paid. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Okay, and then, okay, Damien, how did you make it less intimidating for you, or what made the process approachable for you?
Well, in the video, I said that the loan had a community feel to it because it was people that I knew that were determining if I would get the loan or not. So I think they worked off the references, I'm not sure. And I didn't know these people who were approving my loan. And I'm not very organized. I don't have a book or anything. And then that rich guy, poor dad guy, author, he says he won't work with anybody who does not have anything written down. So I'm one of those people. I'm a slacker, and if I could find somebody to write a business plan for me, it would be more organized right now. But then again, I don't think I would keep up with demand because I'm the only one working on my TPs.
That is just such a great point that you just made, because I think that that is something that all of us who work with business owners find, and we use this language sometimes, you can't work on the business when you're working in the business. So your choice about, am I gonna be making the moccasins or making the TPs or doing these other things, is a very real one for everyone. And I am impressed, Demetria, you said earlier in your story that one of the things that the loan helped you do and the coaching that you got through the loan was convince yourself that you should hire somebody. And you did hire for the business plan. And so I think that that's one of those things. We don't have to be all things to all people, right? Other questions? Mary Ann? Yep.
This is for Damien. What's the wait list look like to get a pair of those moccasins? Because I don't know about anybody else, but I need a pair.
Damien, the question to you is, what does your wait list look like for getting a pair of moccasins? Because he doesn't know about everybody else in the audience, but he needs one. And where do we get them? So what do you...
There's a footprint that's kind of crumbled up.
Yeah?
So I have to do this myself. Take this footprint and I work off of that. That's how they're custom made.
So we have to come to you and let you trace our footprint. Yeah. Okay. So maybe
sometimes I'll just have time and I'll just sit down. Right now I'm working on the other thing that's presenting a challenge for me too is I don't have a working space. See, this place I'm in right now, I do my ceremonies here. So last night I was sewing a teepee until like 2 a.m. They picked it up at 7 this morning. So and the floor is the dirt floor. So I had to put like a tarp in here, then sew on that, and then after that, fold that up, put everything away, then prepare for my teepee or the ceremony I'm doing right now. And then if I'm going to do moccasins, then I have to bring in a table, then set up, and then if I work inside the house, if I had a working space, I could do a whole lot more. I think if I do get a loan again, that's where my money will go to, something.
that's a really great point. And I think that a lot of Swavoski was talking this morning about putting a space in Shiprock, right? And are you close enough to Shiprock that you could go use space there if they had it? Or is that too remote for you too?
It's an hour away, but this is where I'm in the rural area, so it's not really. I was there 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is one of the things that I think lots of people in rural communities face, and where to get workspace when you're just trying to grow your business can be really challenging, particularly when you have equipment like yours and things that need to travel, the space needs to accommodate. And if you're doing your sewing at 2 a.m, you have to have a 24/7 location, right?
Yeah. And I have two boys, so one of my sons kind of picked up sewing. So he helps me, but he's in college now, so I'm on my own right now.
I think that you're happy that he's in college, but he's abandoned you into your own devices, and now you have to stay up till 2 a.m, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, other questions from the audience? Okay, I think that what we are going to do is thank Demetria and Damien for their participation. I know that Demetria, you need to go pick up your children. Damien, it sounds like you need to get to work on moccasins. You don't have time to be talking to us. And particularly if all of us want some of your moccasins. And then I'm gonna ask the group to stay and we're gonna talk about some of the themes that came out in these conversations and what we might learn from them. So thank you very, very much. We really appreciate your participation.
So we can go now?
You can go now.
All right. Okay, thank you. Hey,
Bye. Thank you.
bye. You seem so cool. It's nice to meet you.
Okay, can we,
Ah,
thank you.
Wait,
Can we turn
I don't know
off,
if
I'm
I
gonna
can
have
get off.
us turn off the lights
Okay.
and turn off this screen so that we can have a different kind of conversation here. Thank you. I want to thank you all for indulging us with the handicaps that the technology presented, but I think it accomplished exactly what we wanted to in this session, which is that Allison learns how to use the technology in the room. Maybe not.
Maybe.
Yeah. Which is to say that these are, oh, thank you, yeah. Which is to say that it's one thing to talk in theory, and it's another thing to talk in real life with entrepreneurs that are trying to make it happen and what their daily struggles are. And when we talk about models, the way we talked about them this morning, we're talking about policies and structures and these kinds of things. And yet what you heard those entrepreneurs say, those business owners say, I'm gonna learn from what Damien just shared with us, because I think he's exactly right. We don't need to be using this language. It's a barrier. What you heard those business owners saying was that it was the loan officer that texted her back that made the difference, right? It was the ally in the process that made the difference. It was somebody who knew me when Damien talked about the community feel. And so I'm just going to ask raise your hands again, the entrepreneurs in the audience. How many of you have reached out for help? Yeah, okay, so would you mind sharing a little bit about your story about reaching out for help and whether you found it to be easy to access, hard to access, what made a difference for you in reaching out for help? And Marianne's going to come and bring the microphone to you. And you guys, this is Marianne Christensen, the founder and inspirer and everything behind the Hanagram Center for Entrepreneurship. So she takes a very kind of backseat role in Radically Rural because she has dreamed it up and then left it to others to execute with her guidance and stalwart support in the back. And so I just want to honor that is who is handing you your microphone. And if you haven't had a chance to meet her and know her, she's an amazing person. So thank you.
Yeah.
Ken's about to turn it on. We're about to hear you.
To turn it on. I'll speak very quietly until, okay, there you go. Nice to finally meet you. We met on a webinar once before. I'm Andrew from Mashup Lab. And so reaching out for support for entrepreneurs can be like a really sort of awkward and intimidating thing, especially from service providers. And I sort of float on both sides of that equation. I am an entrepreneur, but I worked in the service provider world and started my company because of a gap I saw in my own community that, as it turns out, exists in lots of other places. But the challenge is sometimes we're often asking you for money or some sort of access to some sort of resource. So we don't want to come off as looking stupid, like we don't know what we're doing. So sometimes even the ability, even though you make it very welcoming for us to do so, asking the stupid questions can be a real sort of challenge and barrier. So where I often start is with other entrepreneurs in my network that say, like, how did you do it? How did you access it? What's the right question for me to ask? And like, what are the things that I need to know that aren't on the website that are going to end up getting in my way as I go through those things. So some of that, like, really sort of practical peer-to-peer support before we get to the service providers can be really, really important. So I echo their advice around just building connections and networks, not only with people that can provide you with money and resources, but with other entrepreneurs that have been through that process themselves.
That's great. That came up in the conversation earlier this morning about the importance of the peer-to-peer coaching and counseling and just general support. Thank you for offering that. And also, I do, like, all of us kind of reach out, like, what's gonna, what are the questions on the test? Like, what are they gonna ask me? What are they gonna wanna know? Am I gonna be able to answer that? Nobody likes to feel stupid, right? And of course, we all say it and we all believe it, kind of, which is there are no stupid questions. We kind of believe that for everybody else, but we're sure that we're going to ask the one that is totally stupid, right? And so that's the thing that I think makes it different. Do you guys want to add to that in any way?
So I'll just say a little bit different than kind of what we heard our entrepreneur paths. I really think knowing your business inside and out and knowing your numbers is so empowering. Get the math behind your plan and how it's going to work, and you'll be so much more confident going forward in asking the tough questions and asking for funding and all of that. So kind of part of our plan is looking at, do you know your math? Do you know, your sources, your uses, your profit margin, all of that? I kind of feel like education can be the key, and of course instinct is important too. But I do think, that sometimes gives you an easier way to get to your question is, do I understand what's behind all of this? Beyond just what my business is.
Yes, so this is something I like to kind of let all of our entrepreneurs know, our members, especially, can you hear me? Especially for the ones who are wanting to scale their businesses, is you're going to want to build a network around you, because it does take a village, like we were saying. But really, when you're trying to move your business to the next level, you're going to want an accountant. You're going to want a legal service that you're going to go to, in helping you understand contracts when you're signing deals with other organizations. You're going to want to build that relationship with your banker so they can understand where your business is at. Really, I think just building that network around you to kind of help you elevate your business to the next level. And if your business, and that's the thing too, is a good banker or a good lender is going to want you to be successful. And so when you're able to gauge them in a way that can move you forward, I think is always someone you're going to want to work with anyway.
I think one of the things that we often suggest too, so I'm going to say also, Hannah Grimes uses the magic of cohorts, the cohort model for doing this kind of work. And I do think something magical happens. And one of the things that we do at the end of the cohort is they all pitch their businesses to a welcoming community of their friends and family, but also of people that are materialized. And the difference after they have pitched that business in their confidence and their willingness to talk to other people is it's transformative. That experience alone is transformative. And the magic of the cohort is they're all doing it together. And so they will ask each other questions. There's tons of email that flies around that has nothing to do with the facilitators or instructors in that course. And that's good, right? We should not be the place through which everything flows. So I think that that's an interesting part. I think this is where rural communities have it all over urban communities, to be honest with you, is that I think that social capital is so, you know your neighbors, and you know that they raise Rottweilers and have a trucking business and, make moccasins and teach math in Navajo and, all these kinds of things. And so that helps too, right? I think that there is that being known. I'm just curious, how many of you in this would say that you could name a local business owner in your community and that you've had side conversations with them and you've maybe said to them, hey, have you heard about Hannah Grimes or the equivalent in your community? How many of you would say that, yes, that's true? I definitely, yeah. Okay, and how many of you are not in the business of doing that? You do something else for a day job. You're not an entrepreneur support, yeah. A lot of you, right? And so that's the other piece, is using your community to refer those assets. I think that becomes a real, and so the saddest story I ever hear is the entrepreneur support organization is the hidden secret, right? Like it shouldn't be a secret, right? It should be like something that is well known by the community. Others that have been entrepreneurs that have crossed that path, I think you had raised your hand in front of the gentleman that just shared, yeah. Mary.
So is it on now?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Rob Casper, I own Walpole Creamery.
Oh my God, Walpole Creamery. I just was at a town picnic where I got to have ice cream sundaes with Walpole Creamery ice cream. Yum. Yeah, yum.
You get the co-op too. So, I don't know how far we want to tell you about it, but I started off as a lawyer. Okay? And I was actually in the JAG Corps in the Navy, and I got out and I was practicing law here in Walpole, New Hampshire. And I got involved with the creamery, initially starting it up, and then the 3 people that had it didn't want it anymore, so then I bought it. So now I've been doing this for the last 11 years. But now I'm coming here because I'm at the junction now where, and I've never really had these sort of problems because with the lawyer thing, I had a lot of networking going on already. And I knew everybody in the community, I knew the bankers. So it wasn't that hard for me to transition into being an ice cream kind of guy. But the hard part of it was getting the good staff, and training the good staff and making sure that the product we're producing is still going to be the same grade that we want it to be. You know, all natural, super premium, and all that kind of thing. So that was the tough part for me around here, is finding the staff and then retaining them and training them. Okay. I'm now at a place where I finally have a wonderful staff. And it's funny because being a veteran myself, it ended up with the 2 people that are really underneath me doing most of the work now are other veterans. I have a woman Army veteran who's now running my plant, and I've got another Army veteran who was a former tank driver who's in charge of the logistics, right? So I'm at a stage now where I'm sort of in the transition stage for me, but we have a tremendous, I think, opportunity in Walpole. For over a decade, we've been talking about building our own co-op up there. And then 5 or 6 years ago, there was discussion across the river in Westminster about having a food hub where the farmers could bring their goods and process them. So I'm here today, or coming to this, to try to find out how we can source doing that, having a co-op with a food, production facility next to it. And we're already licensed milk processing plant and so forth. We have lots of dairy farmers around there. I source my locally from a farm right in Walpole. It would be a tremendous opportunity for all those farmers. We could have a milk processing plant, making ice cream, food processing for the other goods that we have around here from the local farms, like Pete's Stand and so forth, and a co-op to sell them. So that's what I'm here to try to.
Yes,
I was
please.
about to say, I have some recommendations
Yes,
for you.
go ahead, Mary Ann. Mary Ann, this is a big part of Hannah Grimes' work, so go ahead, yes.
So I would just say come back again next year. There's a guy here who I don't see in this room right now, but Ben Rasmussen. He's from the Frontier group. He's from New Mexico, but they do incredible food system work. We definitely plan on talking about food systems here next year. Because it's really critical. I think for us, we've always, as we started with the Hannah Grimes Marketplace, we've always worked with farmers, but finding increasingly that, I think the empty shelves probably shocked all of us during the pandemic, and this whole idea of localizing food, and, we've got food within 10 or 20 miles of, am I too close to that thing? Okay. So I think that is a question. I think there are groups around the country who have done it really, 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 really well. And I think, sharing models, shaping and sharing ideas together, which is what Radically Rural is about, I think is it. And I'm just wondering, is there somebody in the room that has, we'll start with you, but part of, and then we'll go to you. I think part of this is to get the ideas from the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is an amazing opportunity because I just connected with somebody that is doing exactly what you're doing. So I don't mind making that connection so you can learn some models from him. But really it's about getting that community engagement. Like they need to be invested in this project. You have to get them as stakeholders. If you don't early on in the project, you're gonna do a lot of planning for nothing. So until you get community buy-in, you are gonna spin your wheels. Not only that, you need to get local government invested into it too. You need to show them what the investment model can be. Start talking to local restaurateurs. Start talking about how they can have their food trucks operating out of that, and you can increase that revenue model for them. There are a lot of ways that you can bring stakeholders. So you've already said that you're connected. Start talking to these people. Start encouraging them to understand the need for this business. And I guarantee you people will start joining the conversation.
I do think you're a little bit along the way, unless the signage is misleading, but I think there's a big sign in a lot next to the Hungry Diner
So you already have
that says future home of the Walpole Co-op. Now, is that just an aspiration? Do you own that lot and you've just put it out there? Okay, yeah.
Benson Wood owns a lot.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And Benson Wood has been very helpful on this too. They've actually told us that they would help us. They would build a building, we would just have to lease it back.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you've got someone in the back that I think has an idea. Yes, Michelle.
Hi, Allison. I just sat next to somebody in the first session who was talking about starting food processing, a food processor. Either you already know her or you should know her. She's here somewhere. I didn't get her name, but she's from Marlow. Is that? Okay. So she wants to start a food processing plant near here. It just told me that a couple hours ago.
Experience in your own community?
In either food hubs or co-ops, because they are slightly different propositions, but they do connect to each other, right?
The co-op actually exists on paper. And there's some 200 members to it that they all joined up about 10 years ago. Nothing's ever happened since then.
Have you tried asking them for investment?
I'm talking to them.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm like, that's not
Benson Wood is a good one.
Okay, so I do think we've got 10 more minutes. So I thank you for sharing your want and desire, because I do believe that putting it out there, it will come back. This is a small enough gathered group. People will start talking. Yeah, this is networking. This is making those connections, and that is your aspiration. That's an entrepreneurial aspiration. I also like the story that you pivoted away from law. That's my story too, and we're all so much happier for it, aren't we? Yeah, okay. So other people, yes. Yes, please.
Just because we're recording it, it's very awkward. So I would just want to ask you guys, in terms of what percent of, what's the average size of the loans that you guys are sending out, which you haven't said yet. And then the second thing is, what percentage are women? And I'm asking because I was involved with the Vermont Women's Fund, did a project called thiswayupvt.com, where we basically surveyed like 3,200 female entrepreneurs in the state. It came out, access to capital was like the big issue, but guess what? Out of the 3,200, we had like a list of all the technical service providers, or SBA, SBDCs, less than 200 of each of those categories. They are not reaching out. How do we change that?
Okay, so I think everyone heard the question, and so we're going to start with what kind of average loan and what percentage to women.
So we are data geeks like Allison. So 56% of our loans are to women, 40% are to startups, and 21% are to minorities, which in New Hampshire is a big number because we have really about 6% minority population here. Our average loan size is $111,000. We use a Kiva product, so generally 10,000 and under, we try to fund through Kiva, which is no interest crowdfunding. It's a very economical way to do it. Anything above that, we look at in-house up to right about 500,000 or so.
They definitely have a larger size loan than we do. That's okay. So our loans range from 500 and they go to 100K. Our average loans, and in full disclosure, we didn't start doing 100K until the beginning of 2022. So we're very much still in the early stages of what our loan size would be. Our average loan size overall, our whole portfolio currently is $40,000. But we do larger loans all the time. One of the great things that I do love about Thread too is we do collaborative loans. So if it's over the 100K, we do work with traditional lenders or other CDFIs to make sure they're capitalized. As far as the percentage of women, we do upwards to, it's a little over 60% for women. Our BIPOC is about 60% too. The only area, and we do segment them out, we don't just classify it as BIPOC. We do Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian American. Latino is where we do struggle the most. I will say that, and we are actively trying to increase our lending segmentation. I will say historically, the Latino population is not necessarily open to debt. So a lot of that is re-educating and letting them know why debt is useful and how it can be used. But to your point, we are definitely lending to women. We have a huge solopreneur portfolio of women. So they're doing the things out here, yeah.
Yes, so ours is around 60% as well. And we also collaborate with another organization. They're called Native Women Lead, and they're based out of New Mexico. And so they're doing a lot of great work with, Native-owned or Native women entrepreneurs. And for them, in some of their research, they've been showing that Native women are they really push the economic ecosystems in a lot of areas, especially in Native America, and so they're really nice to work with, and we're all mission aligned with that too.
You want to say average size loan?
Oh, average size loan right now for us is 5,000, because we started with microloans and we're moving that up to around 50,000, hopefully starting the beginning of next year, and so we'll see what our average will be after that.
Well, in all fairness, on that loan size, there's a lot at the very small level and a lot at the big level, fewer in between. So I don't want to, kind of misrepresent that. We do a ton of micro lending, and then a lot of, into affordable housing, mixed use developments on the higher side. So that number that is a little bit skewed. There's, not so much in the middle.
I will also say that Hannah Grimes and others in the room are beneficiaries of the CDBG Micro Enterprise Program. And we have been able to, in the last, since COVID basically, use small grants and small equipment grants. And we're talking $5,000 worth of equipment. And the game changer that is. So for those of you that are thinking maybe a $5,000 loan or a $10,000 loan is not a meaningful move the needle, particularly in rural communities, we find that micro enterprise, in New Hampshire, small business, as the Small Business Administration would describe it, that's 99% of business in New Hampshire. We don't have big business. And then micro business, which is five or fewer FTEs, with the owner being one, is a dominant share of our businesses and the business owners we're working with. And so I think that for those of you that are thinking about taking these things home, don't be daunted by that you may need a huge loan fund, right? You may be able to start with $100,000 and do 20 small loans of $5,000 and move the needle for a lot of businesses very significantly. And Marianne.
Yeah, just, during the pandemic, for the entrepreneur support organizations that are perhaps in the room, we, for the first time ever, were allowed to give out grants to businesses, which for a nonprofit in the federal world you weren't allowed to do. And so that's changed. And that, if you have an organization and you're not able to do that at this point, I would encourage you to maybe find some funding to do that. We actually, there was a bank in the state that started it all. Citizens Bank gave $120,000 to CDFA. CDFA doled out $20,000 to, I think, 5 or 6 organizations. I forget the amount of money. The second we got that money and started giving it out to businesses, we started our own fundraising to do likewise. So we followed on that Citizens tranche of money with our own, and it was 10 gifts of $1,100. We raised enough to give that out. And then from that, CDFA, which is a statewide organization, saw the power of that, and that is how they then took the CDBG funds. So we get $100,000 a year, we give out $25,000 grants. It's changed so much about how we work with our businesses. We are working much more tightly, much more closely. You know, all of a sudden they're sharing financials with you rather than just having a coaching session or, you know, getting directed to the right coaches. And we just have deeper, much more meaningful, much more rewarding relationships with our businesses. It's really changed how we do business, and it's been a joy. It's also, for those businesses, most of the businesses we work with are very small. They don't take debt. They don't, you know, they want to bootstrap. And I think for the ones that got it, that have gotten those funds, all of a sudden they sort of see like, this isn't debt, this is an investment in the growth of my business. With this machine, I can do this much more. So I think it changes their relationship for a lot of them that are so inclined to want to start to grow. They start to look at that as a tool, not as the enemy. So it's been really powerful for us.
I will share really quickly for folks that don't necessarily have a formal mechanism for this. So like many folks in rural places, I wear many hats. And I also started a chapter of the Awesome Foundation in my community. And I've learned about it from a few other entrepreneur friends. But basically we organize ourselves into 3 teams of 10. 10 of us show up with $100 each to make a $1,000 pot, and we give away $1,000 cash every month, no strings attached, to people that want to do all kinds of awesome things in our community.
Whoa, okay, that is awesome.
There's no board, there's no bank account, there's no articles of incorporation. We just all show up with $1,000. We've now given out $80,000 worth of funding, and to lots of things, dirt for a community garden, but also a lot of those folks are starting companies, entrepreneurs that needed $1,000 to buy little perfume bottles to bottle their all organic natural perfume. So there's lots of other sort of less formal ways of doing that, and it comes with its own set of challenges, so feel free to.
Okay, that is awesome, and it's the best possible place we could end this session. So thank you for that contribution, and thank you for all of you coming for an after lunch session and seeing how this is operating in practice. The next event is the Connect event tonight. I hope you will all come. If you are, we're gonna be out at Stonewall Farm. Buses will run from the Courtyard Marriott starting at 4:30, and they're gonna run on a continuous cycle. Your bus schedule can be found in the app. So if you haven't downloaded the app yet or whatever, that's in your guide. There's a little QR code. You can get that, but if you want the bus schedule, you can see that. If you want to transport yourself, you can, but I highly recommend, to avoid parking and all that kind of stuff, ride the bus, plus you'll meet somebody new. Maybe you'll find out about another awesome foundation idea and be able to take that back home. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow morning, we are doing the 3rd session of the entrepreneurship track. It is specifically focused on what we've been doing in the first 2 sessions, but it is not only for those of you that are following that track. It is about taking home ideas you have learned, whether that's an awesome foundation idea or whether that is a loan fund idea or anything else. It will be moderated and facilitated by Chris Harris and Raquel Thiessen from the Kansas Leadership Center. It will be a working session. Roll up your sleeves. You'll walk out with your to-do list so that you don't have to do that on the airplane back home or, in your, nightly routine of extra work after work. And we would love to see you there. And I think and then the final session of the entrepreneurship track, that will happen in this room, but the final session will happen in the Black Box Theater behind the Colonial. It will be our Pitchfork Challenge. It is one of the ways that the Hannah Grimes Center gets money into the hands of local entrepreneurs. It's a $10,000 pitch competition. We have 5 businesses pitching. We have done pitch coaching with them with an amazing array of volunteers and stuff.
businesses that are so fun, and I've been giving this little teaser, which is we have everything from a software as a service business that supports childcare to a livestock landscaping business. And if you don't know what that is, you should come to the Pitchfork Challenge tomorrow and find out. But yeah, goats and sheep. And where do you think that they are most in use? That is the most 21st century use of them? Solar arrays. They can't get machine driven landscaping in there, and so solar arrays. So there you go. We hope that you will come and see them, but there are lots of other exciting things going on, so we will certainly understand if you do something else. Have a good rest of your day. See you at Connect.